Hello, everyone. You're all very welcome back to Underground Cinema. As most of you know, we are very close to the 50th Underground Cinema Awards. We're just weeks away. And what we're doing now at the moment is we're trying to interview as many directors, as many actors, cast, and crew of the films that have been nominated for this year's award ceremony. I'm delighted to say, I really am delighted to say, I've got Randal Plunkett with me this morning to have a chat with. His film has been nominated as a brilliant film. Marauders has been nominated for multiple awards at this year's Underground Cinema Awards. You're very welcome, Randall.
It's good to be back, Dave. It's been a while.
You know what? It has been a while because we go back a long time. I mean, I just was having a quick look at what you sent through to us all those years back, and it goes back some time because the very first short you sent in to me was back. It was just around 2010 or 11. Was Kiss Kiss, if you remember rightly.
I don't even remember it was that one. My God, I've been around as long as
Yeah,
the festival.
yeah.
But
You
it was
have.
great,
I
actually.
mean, after that, then we got Walt in, and then you had Prey into us, and then it was the sort of quiet period.
Yeah,
And we
well,
hadn't heard from
unfortunately,
you in a bit.
I don't need to tell your audience how difficult it is to get into different categories. Because, when you first start, you're kind of like, right, I'm going to make a short film. I'm going to put my pocket money in a jar, and then I'm going to pay for it because nobody's going to give you anything. So you ask for favors. Mom and granny make the lunches, and you try and do something, and it's usually terrible. And you can't get anyone to help you. You can't find an editor, so you have to literally put the film together with duct tape and spit. And then finally you achieve a film, and you're like, right, I'm going to send it to Cannes. Of course, Cannes not going to take it. So you go, right, what do I do now? Because I've made the film. That was the hard bit, I thought. What next? And I got to say, it was really interesting for me because when I first started, I had no idea about what to do. And I think so many filmmakers, even today, have no idea what to do. And it was really interesting because the Underground offered a real opportunity for you to actually get the festival experience and to understand how the process works. In fact, to be honest, I would say your festival was really one of the pivoting points for me on how to go about filmmaking, because I used to think it was all about making the movie. It's all about where you send the movie. It's all about getting it to the audience, because actually, and this is the really bad part, the filmmaking side is actually the easy bit. It's everything else that is like the smoke and minefields. You know what I mean? But you opened up a huge opportunity for us. And I remember I learned a lot because I met a lot of people at the Underground, because that's the other problem with Ireland. There's no like networking scene, or at least there wasn't back then. I would still argue there's not much today, but it's being able to get to a festival that you can get to, because anyone can send it to Las Vegas Independent Film Festival, but how many people can actually go? And the Underground was a really good place to create like a hub for young filmmakers in Ireland. And there really wasn't that until you came along. So
Yeah, like
kudos
when
to
you
the work
started
you've done
sending your
for
work.
us.
Yeah, when you first started sending your work into us, if I remember rightly, your first two films were shot in the UK. And I remember looking at saying the production values of this film are actually quite good. They're standing out a little bit higher than some of the Irish filmmakers, and that might be down to the access of better equipment compared to say 14 or 15 years ago. The edit was quite sharp. Storylines were really good. The locations were great. I remember the locations were superb. When we first started, the idea of underground cinema was to showcase independent and international films and get everybody down together to watch them on a monthly basis. We had no idea if they were going to take off, and that's where the networking really happened. So to me, 50% of the evenings at Underground Cinema in Dunleary back in the day was the screenings. The other 50% was the networking. And if you remember rightly, Randall, back then we used to do Q&As directly after each one of the screenings. So if the director was there, we got a chance to hear about their trials and tribulations, about trying to get the short films to the big screen. So yeah, it was it was an important time for young filmmakers.
It was a game changer because, I mean, obviously back then, it's different now because Ireland's quite popping with film, but 15 years ago it wasn't. There was the people who were doing Game of Thrones and stuff like that, but that's not most people. And then if you come out of college, and there were loads of people, there was no way for you to kind of break in. So you had to do it yourself. And the problem is like, you know, Ireland is a small country, but it feels very sparse, especially for film. And, you know, as a young filmmaker, you didn't know where to go, who to meet. You know, there weren't clubs as such. And, you know, being able to go there, see what other people are doing, because, you know, the Irish film, I did my first film in the UK, and then the rest of them were done here. There's a style that comes with Irish film, which is very different from the UK. The UK independent films have a feel. Irish independents have a very different feel. And, you know, when you see those films and you see people's independent voices, it was very interesting to see where people were coming from, because you had the Dublin contingent who had a sort of style, that sort of Dublin style. And then you had everyone else, you know, your Westmeaths, your Sligos and things like that. Very, very different styles. And to see that kind of being able to get a taste of all of it was really important, because it's you know, film school is great if you can go, but the best film school is the cinema. And especially if you can watch films that are on your level. And that's what I think I got a lot of benefit out of it, because it was able to be inspired and see what other people were doing, and seeing where, you know, and a bit of jealousy helps as well. You know, God damn it, that guy's, wish I was as good as him. And it was great. And I also used to buy the popcorn. And that's really cool, because you had a popcorn machine. And it really felt like you were at the cinema. And it was great. And to see it kind of grown, and the quality of films got a lot better. And some of that is the equipment, but it's more than that. I think it's just the appetite and the hunger for producing quality films. Because at the beginning, when I started, the bar was set. But like a lot of the films that I made back in the day, I don't think would have gotten into your festival in 15 years later. You know what I mean? They weren't of that level. So I've watched it over the few years that you've been active, and I've taken gaps in and out because it takes so long for me to make a movie, that I've seen like, oh my God, I'm sure I'm going to be. And by the end, you're sort of like, God damn, the competition's hard. It used to be a lot easier. But that's just a testament, because Ireland as a country has become so rich with filmmakers now. It's really great.
Yeah, I think it was really important. We didn't realize at the time the importance that underground cinema was. We had no clue. And I mean, I was talking to, you know, Alan Dunn, a filmmaker there the other day. We've inadvertently created a massive database of just close to 5,000 short films and feature films that we've now got on file. We've kept a record of absolutely everything. Wow. We didn't deliberately set out to do that, but we now feel that this library that we have now is invaluable. One of the things that we are thinking about doing next year is talking to some of the older filmmakers that we had 15, 14, 13 years ago, to showcase some of the work that was screened back then to up-and-coming filmmakers now, and to do a sort of retrospective of their work, and to actually open it up to the floor to young filmmakers to chat about the trials and tribulations of trying to make a movie back in those days, and the difference in 15 years. 15 years is made in the Irish scene.
I'll tell you, I know for a fact, because, you know, nowadays, if you want some lights, you go on whatever, cvp.com, or you go to Film Equipment Hire and you buy some, you know, Godox or some Aperture or whatever, like Amaran, and you could buy like a quality light for 200 euros or something like that. Back then, you had to buy Ari. You know what I mean? Or you could buy some dodgy redheads from China off eBay that were like a fire hazard. And I remember, like, we were talking about Prey. Prey was shot when we didn't have lights. We went to the hardware shop. And I remember going to the hardware shop and rigging construction lights. And I can tell you now, construction lights are horrible for filming. Yeah. They splodge light. There's no refinement at all. And that's the way we did it. That was just the way we did it, because everything was just too expensive. There wasn't sort of cheaper brands, or you either had complete knockoff, which was, like I said, a fire hazard. I mean, I have a set of redheads that every time I turned them on, it would either short the building or they would start catching fire. They wouldn't pass any safety records. And nowadays, like I said, you could go on Amazon, buy something for $50, and that will be safe and it will work. And there's no risk of you shorting the entire building and losing your location because the sockets are on fire. And these were all like serious problems. And trying to, like, even diffusion, like nowadays everything's got clamps. Like, we just had to kind of like put you know, things over them and have some guy standing over there. You kind of didn't have any of that stuff. And so to
Yeah,
see all of that change, and so like, and now cameras, like people are making films with their phone. You know what I mean? I
yeah.
couldn't even get reception 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, and it was so expensive as well. You know, when it came to the edit, a lot of people used to hire film base to edit in there, which was very expensive. Now people are just doing the edit in their bedroom. That's the
Uh-huh.
reality of it now. It's being done at home in a bedroom.
It's crazy. I just did a festival with a group of guys who did their film on an iPhone, and I think they edited on their phone as well. And it was like, you know, editing suites were like, you'd have to like, I remember my first editing suite, I saved for about 2 years to be able to buy one of those Apple crazy things. And I still had to like, and that just got me the body. I still had to like work off TVs that I had in the garage, you know, for the first few
Yeah,
years. Of course, trying to color grade like that, you know, everything was, the blacks were too hard, and you'd get to the screen and you'd say, oh crap, everything's clipped. You just didn't have these tools, and like Final Cut was the cheaper one. My God, that just shows you where we're at. Because Adobe, where you'd have to, if you wanted to like a Premiere, it was like $3,000 to purchase like a Premiere Pro. Nowadays, like you get DaVinci for what, $200, $300. Such a difference. And it's great because you know what, the filmmaking language should be available for everybody. And although we have so much stuff now, so many, I mean, you know, when you first started, I mean, you were probably getting what, 100 short films sent to you. Now I imagine you're near 1,000, you know, every year. You're seeing so much stuff come through. And, you know, and that's, you know, we only see the tip of the iceberg. We see what you pick. We don't see the ones you don't pick. And for that must be, I don't know how you manage to go through them, because you must have a team of people watching those things, and because your eyes haven't gone square yet.
yeah. I remember this is a true story. It was our very first year, and I really wasn't too sure if we were going to get the submissions, but they did start slowly coming in. But I can remember two films by the same filmmaker. Was an international filmmaker. It was in the very early days. He sent us everything was sent to us on DVD. There were no files back then. Everything was, the postman used to be going mad with me. There's so many DVDs coming in. But we got this film in, and it was 20 minutes long, and it was a pot of boiling water with pasta in it, and that was it. Nothing else apart from boiling pasta. And I can remember saying to myself, "Oh my God, I guess this is what I'm getting myself into. Are we going to be getting hundreds of these type of films?" And he sent two films in like that, you know, to me. But then I learned myself there's, you know, there are cinema societies in Ireland that, you know, look at that sort of experimental work and will see art in that. I couldn't see art at all in it, but other people might have a different opinion. But slowly but surely we started getting the really good Irish stuff in. Then we went international a couple of years later, and then the international films started coming in. So it's gone from strength to strength. Over the past couple of years, we've noticed that the storytelling has been superb, and we do think, you know, especially over the last 2 years, that again, I mean, we chatted before we came online. COVID, it was a really difficult situation for everyone, but we have noticed that some of the storytelling and some of the stories that we're seeing now on the big screen, there's a lot of COVID stories out there where people had a lot of time in their hands. And as a result, they've written some incredible pieces, and we're seeing the benefit of it now, 2 years after that, you know, that difficult time.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And the thing is, like, you guys were very, you know, you guys were able to kind of keep it going because your branding was excellent. Like the logo, I just, you know, when you press play there, I got the logo. I was like, my God, it's Universal Studios. I remember it was a fade in, fade out when I started. You know what I mean? Yeah. You've gotten way more into the 3D stuff. And but also, like, what's great is, you know, it's trying to find, you know, if you're an avant-garde filmmaker, you have places for that. The cool thing about your festival is that you're quite open-minded to a lot of stuff, but there is a certain kind of film that you see at the underground. And you're usually looking for quite personal stories. You love the dramas. You love like the kind of creative horrors. I know myself as a guy who basically started doing horrors and then kind of branched out into other things. Like, we always got a good reaction from your audience. People liked like Irish horrors, and there was a lot of sort of film board stuff back then. There really wasn't a lot of sort of relatively well produced, and I use the word well produced, not high quality, yeah, because construction lights and dubbing. But there really was a sort of opening for people who wanted to do more commercial style, you know, horrors and thrillers and things like that. I know a lot of filmmakers who I'm still in touch with, you know, started with you. So it's great to see how like some have fallen off the wagon, you know, because life is difficult. Filmmaking is one of the hardest professions to maintain a reasonable lifestyle. You know, it's feast or starve for most people. Like, and the thing is, even if you're established, that doesn't really change. You know, I know guys who are extremely talented, who've done really well with festivals, and then they can't get a movie made for 5 years. You know, I was talking to Lance Daly. I don't know if you know Lance. He did Kisses. He did Black 47. And his movie, Black 47, was the most successful Irish film in the cinemas. And off the back of that, there's a huge gap. And he's making a movie now called Trad, which I was happy to have hung out on the set for a bit. And but it took him, even though he had all this success, that didn't open up the doors for him to have his next movie. Like, he couldn't get money from the film board. And that's one of the most successful Irish filmmakers. So I think a lot of people sort of feel that, oh, but, you know, I don't have that, or I'm not as successful as him or her. And that kind of limits them in the ability, because they sort of feel that the whole world is against them. When in reality, the whole world is against everybody. That's the truth. And it's really about just having to do a little bit every day and try, and because it's so much about who you know, it's so much about time and place. And it's so difficult. And so many people lose focus, or they lose momentum. You know, I mean, myself, I can talk from experience, because I did Out There, and you guys were very good with me in Out There. That helped me a lot. And just having the nominations opens up so much interest from publicity, from blogs, from websites. And the Underground Film Festival, you know, was recognizable. And having these kind of nominations helped me get to the next category. And then I thought, you know, I'm on the easy road now. Now it's the next one is the first feature, and it's all going to be good. And then 6 years went by, and you didn't see me. I vanished. But I was there trying to write scripts, trying to appease everybody. And finally, I managed to get another movie made. And that was another 2 or 3 years of my life. I remember you produced one in around, I think it was it In View? Is that your first feature?
In View, yeah.
And I remember that coming out.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think it was you at the Q&A, and you were saying what an absolute ordeal to get it over the line was. You know, and you're a man full of connections. And, you know, but that's the truth of it. If you finish any film, like, you should be cracking out the champagne, because it is so difficult. And then when you don't have, and the thing is, a lot of people think it's money is the issue. The more money you have, the harder it actually becomes, because you have even more things tying you down. You have more expectations, you have more rules. When I did my first feature, it was the first time I was really held back by union rules. And I realized how difficult it is to make a movie and have to stand over it, because you're trying to appease not just yourself and stay loyal to your script. You have to appease sales agents. And for them you need to get a sales agent, and then you need to do what the distributors want. And the distributors don't want your film because they just want it for free or pay you nothing for it. The sales agents just want a quick buck. And meanwhile, you're here to make a movie, but at the same time, you need to pay the money back. And there's so many pitfalls, and nobody tells you the truth, because everybody will say, oh, but I made 100,000. They didn't make 100,000. They made 5,000, you know, and everybody's lying and cheating, because nobody wants to be perceived as a failure. And to be perceived as a failure can ruin everybody's chances. So what? Everybody lies. My film was made for $1 million. No, it wasn't. It was made for 10 grand. And that's the thing. Everybody's is keeping their cards close to their chest. So you don't know what to believe. You hear something from somebody, and nobody knows what they want anyway until you give it to them. And I remember it being so difficult to do, and especially, like, I thought drama. I see all these film board movies, they're drama. And then I get to Cannes, and I realize that everybody doesn't want drama unless you've been to Cannes. And so what do you do with your drama? Well, it's Irish drama. Nobody understands. And then people go to me, oh, but nobody can understand the accents. So we can't sell to America, or secretly that's what they say, but they'll say, well, but we'll sell it. We'll give you $2,000 for it, for America. It's it's a real pitfall. And you know, the sources of information are really, really difficult to find, really tangible sources, because I see websites all over the internet telling me absolute fantasy. So being able to sit down with people and hear their war stories makes you sort of take note, you know?
Yeah. In View, when I did it, it sort of takes 3 years out of your life. So we spent a year in pre-production, the shoot itself, and post-production. It does take 3 years out of your life. And it's funny we're talking about this, because yesterday, like people are talking about the green wave. So what we're seeing at the moment is we're seeing some independent filmmakers that have managed, which is fantastic, to get their feature films into mainstream cinemas, which 15 years ago was unheard of. So Tony Kelly's got The Hurler in. He got a 6-week run. Paddy Slattery there just after COVID had broken along the cinemas. But the one that I'm really keen on is Maurice O'Carroll's film, Swingbout, with Sinead O'Riordan's producing it. And Sinead was on to me yesterday, and I'm just her text here, and you know, she said, "Oh Jesus Christ, I'm dead. I'm like a corpse." Like, the amount of work that girl has put into that film is absolutely unreal, with next to no budget. And I know she's with regard to finance, you know, nobody is supported her apart from her ingenuity and getting the money together. But what I am encouraged about is that we are now seeing some independent Irish features making mainstream cinema. At the end of the day, that's what we want to see, is those films entering the cinema. But what you rightly say, they need to be making money so you can go out and make another one. It can't be in a loss-making situation. It's a business at the end of the day.
And that's the thing. It's a business that it's not done. It's a business that's run by not business people. It's crazy. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned Sinead, because like I met her the first time I went to the Underground, and she was an actor at that point. Still an actor, but like she was only an actress. And I remember meeting her, and I liked her straight away because she's super charismatic. So she was in for good things. And I see that she went into producing, and she's an excellent producer. I've seen her, like, she's also very consistent. Like, she's knocking out material regularly. Because that's the problem. Like, you can spend 5 years on a movie and nothing happens, and then you're out of touch. Your movies, you know. But Sinead has gone on. She's done shorts. She's done features. And this Swingbout, I haven't seen it yet. I'm very. I was desperate to get to the cinema to see it, also to support a friend. But it's so good. It's so clever. Like, it's very like, it looks very like sharp and very edgy, you know. And even the marketing that I've seen all over the internet of that girl, like, I think she's in a lift or something. I'm like, it's simple, but it's brilliant. It looks like a movie that's very expensive, and I'm sure it wasn't. And the thing is, she deserves every bit of success that she's got, because in reality, it's that grafting that has got her there. And, you know, you have to be very much a grafter. You can't, you know, if you stay at home and you hope that festivals will pick up your movie, you can't. You have to go. You have to meet people. You have to go to every networking event you can get your hands on, because making the movie is one thing. It's getting it seen. And you know yourself, you know, this business is about relationships, you know. And Sinead got to a lot of where she was through talent, but also through the fact that she turned up at everything. You'd see her at every event, working the room. And, you know, it's not as easy. And that's the harder bit, because most of us are socially awkward, you know. We all need the liquid engineering to get the talking going. But the truth is that is what it is. And it's hard for some people, because a lot of filmmakers, a lot of writers in particular, they write, they don't talk, you know. And it's something you always have to train yourself as an exercise to do, you know. And staying in touch with people. You know, I haven't seen you for God knows how many years, because, in fact, we were talking about In View. I think one of the last times I bumped into you, we were at Galway Film Festival. I was at the premiere of that movie. That was the last time you and I had a serious talk. We had a pint at the boat club. And then we went to see that movie, and that movie was a full house. And I remember that movie quite well, because it was, you know, it was your first feature. I don't know how many you've done since. But it was a big one, and I remember, like, all the marketing behind it. Like, it was one of these, like, films of passion, where, like, everybody helped, everybody was working extra hours and for nothing to get the movie over the line. It was a movie built on favors, as far as I remember. I think that's what you said during the.
it was a huge collaboration process. It really, really was. And you know, Sinead did the exact same thing as well. I mean, she's there since the very start at Underground Cinema. She networks really well. She has a fantastic personality. She's a real people person as well. So much so that on my daughter's christening, she was there at the christening, and she talked me into going back into theater. I directed her in a play, the Wool Gatherer, that was on in the new theater in Dublin. I sort of more or less retired from theater. She managed to talk me back into it, and next thing I know, I'm directing her and it turned out to be a huge hit in Dublin. It was
Yeah.
great. So no, she's fantastic, but it is all about collaboration.
It
Meeting
is.
the right people, and you do it as well. I think, Randall, surround yourself with really good people.
Yeah, and it's hard. It was hard because it took me, like, I've been at this a while, and in fairness, like, it's not the only thing I do, but it is tricky, and finding people who are going to stay with you, because I've gone through people where we collaborated once and it went really well, and then the second time up they tapped out. Either they got busy and didn't take it seriously, or they started drinking, or whatever. And so many people I started with have sort of fallen through the cracks because they couldn't maintain it. And others, the people you least expect, have continued to go on and achieve and stay. And one thing, the recipe I found for success is you must not waste time, and you must do everything strategically. You need to be thinking, right, don't get worried that my film hasn't been made yet. I have to keep going. I have to be meeting people. It's all about, because I think a lot of people enter it thinking that they're going to be able to do everything themselves. And some people do, but it's the road best traveled is a road with friends, because it's
Yeah,
those friends who are going to get you through. It's knowing the guy who owns the restaurant. It's knowing the guy who has a contact in a pub, because filmmaking is all about knowing people in other industries. How many times have you managed to get something because you happen to know somebody who is in a different field than you, right? How many bars or clubs or locations do you know just because you drink at the same pub, or you go and your kids go to school with their kids? You know what I mean? It's that you have to be a social butterfly, regardless of what part of the industry you are.
and you have put together a fantastic team to that have worked on this new short film. Can you tell us a little bit about it, Marauders?
So it's we wanted to try something, because I've been banging around a script for years now, and I was struggling because I'm not a great writer. I struggle. I'm in the sense that, especially, I find it very difficult. It's the hardest part of the industry for me is writing, because it requires a free flow of ideas. Now, if anyone who's talked to me for longer than 5 minutes can see that my brain is scattered. So to sit there focusing and being able to put one image after another in a coherent way, I'm more likely the guy who's going to send you a short film of pasta cooking. I'm that guy. So I can recognize that it's hard for me to put things in a linear fashion and be able to go, because I keep going backwards and forwards and all around, and I find black spots. So I can spend a long time on a script that never really finishes. And I was getting frustrated with that one, and I decided, you know what? Maybe I'll just do a bit of it and see what comes to life. Maybe I get inspired by my own work, right? And then I'll find the path. So I decided, rather than trying to have the whole thing ready and finished, which would be a feature or a series, we hadn't really decided. I just do the first 10 minutes. Let me just do a little bit of a wink, a prequel, if you like, to the characters. See what the atmosphere feels like, and maybe that will inspire me for the rest of the movie. So we decided to do that. So it is essentially it's a promo slash pilot, if you like. And I just wanted to see, like, do characters give me inspiration? And they did, because Paul in particular is a great one. And he got this nomination from yourselves. And I've been working with Paul for, like, I started with Paul. We did a show. We did a small sort of series called Mr. Donkey 15 years ago. And that was a real DIY comedy. And I'd always wanted to work with him since. But I never could find the right project, and this was an opportunity. I mean, to play the character he plays, and he's getting finally some recognition for it, because he's been a very good actor for a long time, and he needs to do these kinds of cool roles, because he's got that thing, he's got that magic, and when you put him on screen, he just lights up the place. So we shot the thing. We didn't have very much money at all. Like literally, it was a couple of grand we had to do everything. Everybody was more or less working for nothing. It was pretty much a new crew. I had a couple of core members. The costume department, like those guys had never done a film before. That was their first film. So you can see the potential that was there because the costumes were crazy. And makeup is the same. Like that was pretty much one of his first shorts. I think it was his second short. Aoife, who is the lead actress, like that was her second short, maybe her first. And then it was like, so it was all these people were just starting out. And I had been a director for a long time, but it was the first I was returning to try and do DP because I was struggling with my films and I wanted to be involved in cinema. Like, you need to be involved in every aspect of filmmaking. If you want to be a good director, I think you need to at least have tried every job and understand what it takes. And I wanted to do more with camera work because I'm a fanatic about vintage lenses and photography and stuff like that. And I thought, well, DPs are hard to deal with. Finding a good DP who can bring value to your film and not cost you the entire budget is very difficult. So I figured if I could be the camera department, I would save myself a considerable amount of money because the budgets of both my last films, the camera department was always one of the most expensive, and being able to capitalize on saving there would allow me to spend money where I really wanted, which was the catering and the production design, because that's always the bit. Production design and costume are always the areas where most people cut because they'd rather favor the camera. And in the old days, that made a huge difference. You needed to have a good camera because the separation between having like a Canon XL2 or a Z1 by Sony to having something that you have nowadays, a Blackmagic, it's chalk and cheese difference. The margin between entry level and serious level has shrunk and shrunk and shrunk with every year. But when I started, there was a considerable difference. But that is also open. That means that now what's important is what's in the frame. And I would argue there's always been that. And I think if you look at any of the productions that I've tried, we've always tried to make production values very high. Because even if the camera doesn't look great, has some dodgy camera work, the things that let films down are sound and what's in the frame. I mean, dodgy camera work, it can be a style. People, if they're pulled into the story, they're not noticing the camera, or at least they shouldn't notice the camera. But they will notice sound, and they will notice if things start to look cheap. If you're shooting a shot and there's a blank wall, there's no decor, and you just got a beige IKEA couch in an empty room, people notice. When people watch films, people watch Spielberg movies, and that's your competition. I think a lot of people have to. It's not about the budget. Because when people are watching a movie, they're not thinking about how much you spent or who's in it or what. They're looking at, are you pulled into the story? And these little things will break people out of stories very quickly. So I've always been very keen on production design. And as you can see, we spend a lot of effort making things that we didn't have a lot of budget on production design. It was all about grafting. We had a very talented production designer who took a lot of time in creating, and all those things in the production was stuff that we pulled from attic spaces and garages and stuff. It was about just sticking as much into the frame as possible to make it look busy, and we did.
Yeah, and it worked really well. I mean, you've mentioned four things there, so that were really important. Cinematography is superb, and it's got a nod. Costume design as you mentioned there, it's after getting a nod as well. Production design, which is superb in this, and I get where you're coming from. It's like a junkyard sale in the film. Every little bit of junk jewelry you could possibly find, and every bit of junk that you have in your attic is all in the screen, which makes it really interesting, and that's why the nod is there. And then, of course, the best supporting actor nod for Paul. Really, really, four things that you've just mentioned. You've been nominated for.
I mean, it's fantastic. And it's great to see the guys, because a lot of these guys hadn't done a film before. So this is their first go. And it's, it's so encouraging for someone whose first time they get an opportunity to do a movie like this, which is a little bit more creative, and for them to have worked so hard with so little resources, been able to get validation for their work. And, those guys will go off and they'll be inspired to do bigger and better things. And you know, had they got a kick in the face the first time around, maybe some of them would have fallen out. But this was a really important moment. And I will say one thing, you know, in Marauders we had all this stuff, but we spent a lot of time just building stuff. That scene where they're walking through the metal gates, we literally were going to junkyards taking scrap metal to basically tie it to that fence. We built all that stuff from scratch. There was none of that was existing. We had a wall. There was a wall there. And the rest of it, we literally just got rotting wood and nails and time and all that metal. We literally just pulled around. We pulled them from scrap yards. Anyone who had trash to throw away, we were terrible. We were going around just robbing every little bit of scrap that we could stick and throw in the corner. I dragged my old, like, burnt out old Jeep and just dragged it into the corner. No reason. It looked cool. And it creates shape and texture. And I think a lot of people who are trying to make films, they really need to look at the art of pictures. Photography and paintings are a great source for inspiration. I always do that. I always pick artists or styles, and I spend a lot of time looking at them, because it's not that I'm going to copy, it's that I'm getting inspired by certain texture. And in that film, I don't know if you noticed, but there's a lot of, it's not a very, we kept it very, very dark. I wanted to go to the, and I was towing the line before it just became black. Because the environment, like, I live in a place that's very dark, so it's very easy for me to be inspired by shadow. And it was very dark. That scene with Paul, I mean, it's almost in the dark, but it feels so cold. It's so immersive that you're sort of in there and you can feel the climate. And climate is a large portion of what it is, because I'm involved in environmental stuff. And we were talking before how difficult it was for you to do some of your ventures with the drive-through cinema because of the climate, because it's not what we remember as young people. It's like every day it's shifting and changing. You can't plan anything, and that's what the future becomes more of. And so this is what I wanted to do. This is the reality they're in when the climate goes so out of balance that literally you're getting snow, you're getting rain. Everything is always in a constant state of extremity. And that's what it needed to feel like. Everybody needed to feel cold, and it needed to feel uncomfortable. So it's candlelight and gray all the time. And, you know, we were shooting the scenes in torrential rain, and one of our actors nearly got hypothermia. Those conditions were so severe. People always ask me, why don't I film in the summer? And I keep sort of thinking to myself, like, what is summer nowadays? I mean, this summer has been terrible. So, you know, it's the new normal now. Get used to miserable looking weather in Ireland.
Yeah. You got some really great performances out of your cast. Seb's fantastic, Eva's fantastic. The first time I ever saw Paul was back in 2014. We had an opening film at Underground Cinema. Jared Walsh directed it, and it was called A Day Like Today. That was the first time I saw Paul as an actor. He was acting opposite Andy McCaffrey. Blind Fortune was also in the film as well. And he really, really carried that film so well. It was fantastic. But when I saw him in your film, he just munches every line. He just owns the frame. He's just absolutely fantastic in it. Great performance.
And he really, like, we really enjoyed that performance as well, because when I was shooting it, I just had a smile on my face, because he's so horrible in every way, you know. But we made him so, because the costume is so flamboyant as well. Like, I mean, it's so over the top. Like, we made a glove of watches, right? Which is as bad. And, you know, we put gold teeth in his, like, he looks the worst person ever. And the costume and his performance, even the way he just kind of sits there, kind of going, you know, it's just so diabolical. And he had so much fun playing that role. Like, I am preparing the full version now, and I mean, how could you not? He's the rock star, you know, in the frame. I mean, every time, like, everything that comes out of his mouth is it's gold. And that's what you saw, that it was in the cut. You should have seen what I couldn't keep in the cut.
Yeah.
You know, and he's a great actor, because when I wrote the script, you know, I'm a guy who's not too loyal to some of the stuff I write. If someone can get something that makes it feel more natural, that make it their own, I'm very keen. I roll with that. But with Paul, every single thing he did. I mean, the script was more like a guide for Paul, because everything he was throwing these humorous things, and everything was more outrageous than the other. I mean, it was just sitting there, and everybody just looked at each other when he was filming these scenes, and we just said, let's let him ramble. Let him ramble, because he's the magic he throws off the cuff as well. It's brilliant. And if you ever get a chance to work with an actor like that, because I worked with a lot of people, but there's only ever been 2 actors who've worked like him. And it's such a joy to cut, because every single take, you're just sort of, the only problem is he gives you so much, you don't know what to use. And that was what was hard in the cut, because I wanted to give him so much more. But, you know, at the end of the day, you have to be very objective, get into the crux of the story. But it was a real joy to see such a guy who is able to harness this energy and give it in every frame, you know.
So you just mentioned there you're working on a full-length version. Is that right? Is that on the cards?
That was the taste. That's on the cards. Yeah. So we're still kind of deciding whether it's going to be some sort of a series type thing, or we're going to try for a film. We have basically the story, and we're just going to try and see what, you know. I've always been more of a film guy, you know, but the reality of it is there might even be more interest in it as a series. The thing is, there's a lot that you can pull from, because I mean, as characters and as a style, I think that there's a lot of substance there to create quite a few smaller stories. Like, I certainly think that you know, when I originally was creating it, I kind of felt like this was a Game of Thrones meets Mad Max with a bit of Casablanca on the top. You know, that's what I wanted. Yeah. I'm not sure the film board would have given me money for that pitch. But the thing is like, that's how I saw it. And for me, when I look at someone like Paul, he's the bad guy in Casablanca who sort of plays both sides. He's that guy, you know. He's a scoundrel, but he's a lovable scoundrel.
Yeah. Look, the film is absolutely fantastic. You've done a really, really great job at it, Randal. I think it's going to do very well on the festival circuit. And look, I wish you the very best of luck with the feature. It's ambitious, but I've no doubt it'll be superb.
Well, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll get to show it up there at the Underground, and I can finally get to see it in the new venue, because I've been bouncing around for ages, and like I said to you, I think earlier, it's been a while since I've been there, simply because there was such a gap. And once you get into features, it's very difficult, because you no longer control your film the way we did when we had shorts. And I love doing shorts, and it's so good, because for me, it's a lot like sketching. You find your style through shorts, and you know, people, they should do a lot of shorts, because shorts are great for inspiring yourself and finding what you're comfortable with. Because I think too many people rush into features too quickly, and features, as you know, it's 3 or 4 years of your life, and the shorts, you can do a lot of shorts in 3 or 4 years, and you'll find what works for you, and you'll find your people.
Absolutely. Well, look, Randal, we're gonna wrap it up now. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to chat to me today, and we can't wait to see you at the awards. We can't wait to see you in November.
You best believe it. I'm looking forward to it so much. And listen, keep doing what you're doing. You're an inspiration. And hopefully you'll get my next few shorts as well. And let me know where the brown envelopes go.
Well, of course. Okay, Randal. Thank you very much.
You later,
Take care.
Catch you later.
Bye.